Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Entitled People. Hope you're all doing awesome today, and as usual, it's time for more Reddit stories, so let's get into it. Checked out guest tried to break into guest room, threatened to come back to hurt me. GM says I'm in the wrong. For context, OP works at a hotel. I'm going to try to write this in a way that gives as much information and as little information as possible, so that I don't give myself away. A few days ago, a guest that had checked out that morning calls the hotel saying that they had left their phone behind. I checked lost and found and didn't find anything. I radioed housekeeping to ask if they found anything in the room, and they didn't. I get back on the phone with the ex-guest and tell them that we haven't found anything, and that the room has already been cleaned and inspected, and is currently occupied by a new guest. Ex-guest says they're coming to the hotel and hangs up. A few minutes later, ex-guest walks into the hotel and demands a key to the room. I tell her that we can't give her a key because the room is occupied. I offer to call the current guest to see if they can 1. Check the room for the phone, or 2. Give permission for the staff to enter the room and look for the phone. Understandably, the guest is not comfortable with this because they have valuables in the room. Ex-guest calls 911, saying that we stole her phone, and the cops need to come and arrest me personally. At the same time, I call the non-emergency number and tell them that she needs to be removed from the property because she is causing a scene and threatening staff. While I am on the phone with dispatch, ex-guest decides she is going to sneak up to the room and try to break in. She runs into housekeeping and tells them that she left her key in the room. Housekeeping is on their way to let her into the room when I intercept and tell the guests that the police are on their way and she needs to head back down to the lobby. She goes back down to the lobby and calls her friends for backup, and they start threatening to kick my ass, and then said that they're going to come back to the hotel the next time I'm alone. So the cops show up. I tell them that we have done everything that we can do. The cop gets the current guest's phone number and calls them, and proceeds to tell the guests that if they don't let the ex-guest into the room, then they will be arrested for receiving stolen property. Guest says that ex-guest can't go in, but the police officer can go in and retrieve the phone if it is in there. Now a few side notes. This guest checked in under a false name. We only found this out because she gave her actual name to 911. This guest also knew exactly where the phone was. It was almost as if they hid the phone in a spot where they knew housekeeping wouldn't find it. This guest also claims that they needed to catch a flight home, but after doing some research, this guest lives locally. I am 90% convinced that ex-guest was planning on stealing items from the current guest. The other 10% says maybe she really did forget her phone. Anyway, GM calls me and says I was in the wrong. I should have just given ex-guest a key to the current guest's room, or gone into the room myself to search for the phone. I've been with this brand for nearly a decade. I have worked for multiple properties. Never in my career has a manager ever told me this was anywhere close to acceptable. This guest was also not DNR'd or trespassed. I've been off for a few days. I go back tomorrow. I have to worry about ex-guests showing up to fulfill their promise of coming back for me. I am also anticipating a write-up, which I already plan on recording the conversation, because clearly this manager is totally unethical, and I want to have proof of our conversation. This is more of a rant than anything, but I could really use some advice. In my 10 years, I have only had to call the police 3 times, including this incident. This is the only incident where I have been so openly threatened, and I feel like management just doesn't give a crap about my safety at all. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my friend's EpiPen? I have a housemate, Jillian, a 26-year-old female, who is severely allergic to peanuts. There are 5 of us who rent a house together, and we all agreed to put a label in our food containers to help keep Jillian safe and avoid contamination. I have a mini fridge in my room where I store my drinks, so that I don't have to go to the kitchen if I want a drink in the middle of the night. Well, last Friday, my Filipino girlfriend gave me an authentic Filipino dish for lunch at work. It's called kare-kare. It's an oxtail stew with a rich peanut sauce. It's in a glass container and I saved some so I can have it for dinner. When I got home, I put it in my mini fridge, but I forgot to eat it that night because we ordered pizza for dinner. Saturday, I went out with my girlfriend and got home around 9 p.m. When I arrived, Jillian's girlfriend, Trish, confronted me saying I almost killed Jillian. I didn't know what she was talking about. She went on saying how irresponsible of me it was to not label the food in my mini fridge. I asked one of our housemates what the hell happened, and he said Jillian had an allergic reaction to my stew because I didn't put a label on the container. I told them it's inside my personal mini fridge, and how dare they enter my room. Trish said they were looking for beer when they saw my stew. She and another housemate ate it. Jillian only tasted it and she had an anaphylactic shock, where they had to use her EpiPen to stop the swelling. Trish then demanded that I need to pay for the EpiPen. I told them that is not going to happen. If anything, they should apologize to me for trespassing and stealing my food. They called me an asshole. She and 3 housemates said I nearly caused Jillian her life, and the least I could do was apologize and pay for the EpiPen. Edit for more info. Jillian was taken to the hospital. No, I never gave anyone permission to enter my room. They were drinking that time and were looking for more beer. So I visited Jillian in the hospital today and she apologized to me for what happened. It was an accident. She said she didn't eat my kare kare but took some rice. She didn't realize that some sauce got on the rice bowl, so there was clearly a cross-contamination. It wasn't her who went in my room, it was Trish and another housemate, Ian. I will be charging them for the stolen beer and food. I will definitely buy a lock after this incident. It's pretty obvious and I think should go without saying, but it's definitely not OP's fault. It's their own personal mini fridge in their own bedroom. If it were in the communal fridge, then sure. But it's not OP's obligation to label food in their own personal fridge. I locked my entire alley up. Last year I bought a house in my area. Really wonderful old red brick. When I was in the process of buying it, I discovered that the purchase also includes the entirety of the alley. I asked the realtor if this was true. They said yes. I went to the courthouse to double check and confirmed it. So I buy the house. I meet some of the neighbors and I made a joke about charging them rent to use my alley. They flipped out. I was not looking at starting a war, so I just kind of let it blow over. Then winter arrived, and the neighbors started demanding I have the alley plowed every time it snowed, because I own the alley and I'm responsible for it. One of them told me they would sue me if they slipped and fell in the alley. I don't believe they were joking. I paid a friend $25 a month to plow the alley every time it snows, to keep them happy. But during this time, I was also talking with some people at the courthouse. As soon as the snow started to melt in my area, I got a hold of some local contractors and had them build a gate at the entrance of the alley that I keep locked. I've also posted trespass warning signs on the gate. It's all completely legal. I made sure of it before I did this. Now the neighbors are just livid. Basically everyone is calling me an a-hole, including my family. One final note, I am only here to settle a debate with my sister. Regardless if I'm an a-hole or not, the alley isn't going to be opened up again. So much for being nice and allowing people to use what is your own property as if it were public. As soon as people start demanding to keep it plowed and threatening to sue is where I draw the line too. So putting in a gate is not only some comeuppance for these guys for being ungrateful, but it's also going to cover OP to help prevent any problems in the future. I asked strangers to leave my property. So I live in an area that sees a lot of new builds. My husband and I have the last large lot on our street, lived here for 20 plus years. We installed a big play area a few years ago for nieces, nephews, and eventual grandkids. It's on the opposite side of our lot, pretty far from the house. There's a path that goes from our second driveway. It's landscaped and we purchased it from a contractor who was replacing some other park. So I can see how people mistake it as a town park. This happens often, that people stop to play and I usually don't care. But we don't encourage it, as we have 2 giant dogs who will bark at strangers who come in the yard. I put up some blatant signs that say private property and beware of dog. Right now it's still cold here. It's an early Friday morning and I open the door to let the dogs out. They stay in the yard and ignore anything outside the yard. The dogs start barking. I hear yelling. I run outside. There's a couple and their kid playing on the playground. I call the dogs back and put them in the house. I go over to apologize and let them know it's not a public park. As soon as I get within earshot, the mom starts yelling, "What the f*** is wrong with you? We're calling animal control on your ass. Who lets their dogs just run around a f***ing park? Get a fence." I hate confrontation, so I get a little shaky. I tell her it's not a park, it's my yard. She says, "Get the f*** out of here. Get away from us." I point to the signs and tell her that it's not a park. It's our yard and they need to leave. She starts going on about how it's illegal to leave a play area open. It isn't. And it's illegal to let your dogs off leash in this neighborhood. It isn't. There are almost no bylaws here yet. I tell them again to just leave, and they weren't allowed to be on the property. My dogs are in the big window barking, and her husband is screaming that I should train my f***ing dogs before they kill someone. They're bred to guard and detain intruders. Historically, we don't train them as guard dogs. This pissed me off more than anything because I'm an irrational animal lover. I called the police. When they saw I was on the phone with the cops, they started shouting about me being a Karen and started getting in their car. Their poor kid was crying, and the woman said, "Watch what happens when you end up on Reddit and we tell people where you effing live." So here you go, Reddit. My kids checked and didn't find anything about it here, so I'll post it first, and I hope she does post something. I'm sorry my dog scared them, but the screaming and threatening was so over the top and honestly deranged. Everyone is saying install a fence, but that would cost over 15 grand. I've just contacted a company about getting a gate for our second driveway. Before you comment about attractive nuisance law, it doesn't exist here. I don't want to say where I am, but it isn't the US or anywhere close. Boss told me to gain some perspective, so I did and found a new job. I worked as a systems administrator for an IT firm. I got tired of dealing with abusive and angry clients for 5 years. I got tired of being micromanaged and being exploited. I got tired of being talked down to like I was a child anytime the slightest little mistake was made. When my boss learned I was no longer going to work in another market 3 days a week, like I originally planned, and he had no one else, because no one wanted to deal with the jerks in that market, he spent an hour lecturing me on taking a hard look at myself. He said he was concerned about my reliability after refusing to spend 3 hours a day commuting to the other market on top of my workday. If I can't rely on you to work in the other market, then I just don't know if you have much of a future with this company. I think you need to take a long, hard look at yourself and gain some perspective. You know what? You are absolutely right. 2 weeks later, I found a new job and gave my notice. He begged me to stay, offered me more money, etc. This went on for days. I said no thanks. I finally found that perspective you wanted me to find. Boy, am I glad I did. I found a new job with a raise and benefits and no stress. The only advice you've ever given me of value. Good luck to you. He let me go a week into my notice. Started the new job, love my new boss and my coworkers. It's been over a year later. The former boss hired 6 different people to fill my spot. Each lasted 1 to 2 months before they left. Wonder why that is. Maybe he needs to gain some perspective on how to run a company and treat people? Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you all next time.